Hi, I'm Anthony Originello, CEO of the Chartered Professionals in Human Resources for BC and Yukon. We represent more than 8,000 members, and as the organization dedicated to advancing the HR profession through education, advocacy, awareness, professional development, as well as our recognized and impactful CPHR designation, we are proud to be a sponsor of this show. We have been the voice of the HR profession since 1942. Learn more about us at cphrbc.ca.
In this edition of Careers That Matter, I'm joined by Radha Curpen, partner at McMillan LLP in business law and a variety of other disciplines that she's going to explain in a moment. Radha, welcome.
Thank you very much. I am going to explain all of that.
Yeah, well, what are your partner, senior partner at McMillan LLP? Business law is one of your
Yes.
areas of responsibility, but what other areas of responsibility do you have?
Well, I'm the National Client Relationship Ambassador, and then I'm the group head of ESG and sustainability nationally.
Wow. Okay, so what does your job look like on a day-to-day basis?
It's fascinating. It allows me to learn, which is something that I want to do. I learn about the clients of the firm, learn about the things that matter to clients, the issues, the complex issues they're facing, making sure our firm, the various specialized groups of people, whether you're doing M&A, whether you're doing corporate finance, or you're advising on financing, whatever that might be, or litigation, that you have the client's issues, the complex issues facing the client, whether it's people at the board level, people in the C-suite, the general counsel, the type of important complex issues coming at them, and in the industry, how that relates to the narrow advice that we're supposed to be giving, and making sure that it fits all in. So I go there, and I travel a lot as well, going to New York, across Canada, Montreal, Toronto, Calgary, Ottawa.
Wow, okay. So on a day-to-day basis, what would a day look like?
One day I could be advising as part of a team on greenwashing, for example, the competition. Another, I'm talking about supply chain issues, the ESG in the supply chain, forced labor issues. How do you report on this and that? How are things changing? Oh, I could be helping my colleagues on M&A deal, or on a class action defense. So it varies, and a lot of it is I come in and I give advice that are strategic. I go and then continue to develop the issues that the firm has to deal with. Yeah.
So does your work deal with a mix of your interacting internally within the firm, so that you're talking to whoever the legal representative of the client might be, or are you talking directly to the client, or is it a mix of both?
It's a mix of both, but I find most of my time is spent externally as opposed to internally. Although I do have some internal discussion, but more importantly, it's external.
So in that external, there's client-based.
Yes.
But what other elements of the external, the face of the firm, do you fulfill?
Thought leadership. Whether, like the things that we're just doing right now, we just had a discussion on Bill C-5. So part of the things that I do is making sure that we are represented, our voice is heard, our voice is augmented in various forms.
Do you work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday?
No, I do not. I do not work 9 to 5. I never worked 9 to 5. I think maybe as an articling student, I didn't work 9 to 5. I started in Winnipeg, so and I never worked 9 to 5 then.
So how many hours a week do you anticipate or figure that you put in that's dedicated to your job?
I would say, well, certainly over 60.
A week?
Yeah.
And can you ever actually turn it off?
I don't usually turn off because I'm constantly connected. I remember being one of the first. I was at another firm when I was a partner, and I had gotten the BlackBerry. I was in the middle of a deal, and the client, who was a private equity firm, they looked at me, they said, "You have a BlackBerry?" He says, "So do we." And he says, "Well, who among the lawyers, there were plenty of lawyers in the room, had a BlackBerry?" Not many. Maybe I was the only one then. And they said, "Thank you so much for doing that." And I said, "I can't do this deal without a BlackBerry." That's what I think, because I'm getting so many emails a day from all of you. So, and then I went back to the office, and one of the very senior partner in the firm, and someone who was in management came to see me and says, "We understand you got a BlackBerry." I said, "Yes." I said, "I really think that that's going to be the future, and I think it's already here. I can't do what I'm doing right now without this BlackBerry." He says, "You really think we should be getting it?" I said, "Yes, I think the firm should." Anyway, so I don't know whether that made a difference in terms of what the firm did. The firm did get it, but that was something that I'm an early adopter of technology, which I use as a tool.
Okay, let's go back to, where did you go to high school?
I went to high school at Collège Universitaire de Saint-Boniface in Manitoba. I came to Canada with my parents and my sister as a teenager, and my parents right away, my parents only spoke French, they did not speak English, and my sister and I spoke French and English, but my parents wanted to make sure we come from a family of merchants, so being distinctive or distinguishing ourselves from the rest is part of the mantra of our family. And so my dad says, "You speak French. French is important to us. You're going to continue your French in a sea of English." So we went to Collège Universitaire de Saint-Boniface, and that was the best thing we ever did.
So when you graduated, did you go, "Yeah, I know what I want to do. I want to be a partner at a national law firm specializing in business law and ESG and inclusion services"? What were you thinking that you wanted to do when you walked out of that high school?
It's such a funny question, because I come from a family who believed in making sure that, like, my parents are extremely supportive, have been supportive. The reason we're in Canada is because my father, when I was 5 years old and my sister was 3, he said to us, "You have to become a lawyer." He told me that, and I said, "Why is that?" And I said, it's a great education to have." One thing. I said, "Okay." So I put it in my sister said, "What about me?" And she says, "You become a doctor." So eventually my sister and I became a lawyer, she became a doctor. But as we were growing up, we were wondering, what are we going to be? And I said to my sister, "Well, why not? I mean, law is a great thing, medical degree, why not? Let's do that." And so we continued to do that. And then my parents, to make sure we would do it within their support, we came to Canada for that purpose. They had a great life in Mauritius, where I was born. And my dad's family was already part of them in Winnipeg. So that's the reason my grandmother was in Winnipeg, and that's why we ended up. So I knew I was going from my high school to my university. I took French literature and philosophy as a BA, and then I was going to law school. But I didn't know I was going to do law school in French until I met Michel Bastarache, who's the former Supreme Court judge. And he came to us at Collège de Saint-Boniface and said, "There is a responsibility for people outside of Quebec to continue the practice of law in French in other jurisdictions outside of Quebec."
So did you study law in Manitoba in French, or did you have to go to Quebec?
No, I did not go to Quebec. I went to New Brunswick, because that's where Michel Bastarache was the dean of the law school. I met him at Collège Universitaire de Saint-Boniface, and he had a great impact on me.
Wow. So you graduate in New Brunswick?
At Moncton, Université de Moncton, in common law in French. It was the only university that would
common law in French.
who would provide common law French all time. There were people from France, there were people from other countries coming to the university to learn common law French.
So where did you go to start practicing? Did you go back to Winnipeg?
I did. Big parents were there.
And were you
I went-
practicing in French or in English or a combination of the two?
When I started in Winnipeg, in Manitoba, at Thompson Dorfman Sweatman, with Alan McInnes was my mentor, and he continues to be my mentor. He became a Court of Appeal judge. He was a great litigator, one of the best in Manitoba. We did a lot of work, constitutional law cases, even the Catholic school issue, every issue that has a constitutional question I was involved in. And then he gave me a client that's also in the public domain, so I can say that it was Domtar. And he told me, Radha, here's a case that, they speak French, they're from Quebec, with a huge contaminated sites in Manitoba. And he says, I don't think people have been working on this for a long time, and we don't see a solution on anyone. And he says, I want you on it. And then he went to the bench. So I started, then I was doing a lot of law in both English and French from Manitoba.
You didn't stay there forever, though. You then took your talent south.
Oh, no. First
Didn't
I
you?
went to Toronto.
Oh, Toronto.
Yes. And yes. So when I was I was a young lawyer. I said to Al McInnes, I'd love to practice environmental law. And he says, why? And I said, because I think it's the future. It was 1990s. And he says, well, I don't know. Do we have clients in that area? And he says, it's actually a good idea, because actually we had a client who was asking us questions about that. And I said, well, I'd like to do that. He says, did you take it at law school? I said, no, I'm going to learn it from the Toronto lawyers, and because they're going to need local counsel, and that's how I'm going to learn. And the firm was saying, I don't know, do you really want to say no to one of the best litigators in Manitoba? I said, I'm not saying no to him, I'm just adding a new dimension to my practice. So that's what I did, and was able to develop a great practice in that area.
And you were ahead of your time. You were right at the cutting edge.
I was at the cutting edge then, and built an incredibly great practice there. And then I met my husband, who's David Spivak. And his family is from Winnipeg, but he was an investment banker in Toronto. And I got engaged within 6 months and married 6 months later. And I was then wrapping up my practice in Manitoba and moved to Toronto, where I started from scratch.
So you start building your practice in
Yes.
Toronto, and then you moved to New York, as I understand.
Yes, and like I said, my husband was an investment banker at Citi and was being offered several positions in New York City at Citigroup. And
So you had to start over again.
Yes.
And did you have to go and pass the bar
I did.
in New York State?
Yes,
Wow.
I did. I got admitted to New York and practiced law across Canada, because from New York I was doing work in Atlantic Canada and in Quebec and in Toronto and West. But I also then added the US to my practice.
And what ultimately brought you to Vancouver?
It was my husband. So I was in New York, and we came back to Canada for me in Toronto, and everything was going well. I reset my work in Canada for 6 years, and then David there was a company that he took public when he was in New York, and they asked him to help them become the CFO of the company. It's a public company, and so that's when I went to my firm and I told them that I was going to do this.
And you had to start over again.
I did, although then my firm asked me to become the managing partner of that office.
But it wasn't much of an office. You had to build it up, didn't you?
Yeah, so we built it up. There were about 10 lawyers then. When I left it, there were close to 70, I think. Yeah.
Wow. And now you're with McMillan.
Yes.
It's been a great career.
it has been an incredible career, which I never anticipated at all.
So you had a lot of moves, and some of them you had to have courage to take. To go to Toronto, to go to New York, back to Toronto, come to Vancouver. All of those, you're breaking from what is now an established path.
Yes.
What do you think it is about you that gave you the courage to say, okay, well, it's like you were saying about environmental law. No, I don't know, but I'll learn. What is it? What do you think is that personality trait or characteristic that you have that let you say, okay, I trust that this will work out? Because it is a risk.
Yes, there's no question. Every time I moved, I knew like there was a calculated risk. But you're not going to have reward without risk. And also, I like to learn. It is something that I like to add new dimensions to my practice all the time.
Yeah.
I don't view a career as something that's linear. I don't view it as coming from point A to point B, or you just go there, you become an associate, a partner, and and all of that. It is really about, there are turns, there are going to be crossroads, there are the opportunities that come with that. There are risks, but there's also opportunities every time. And what I've said, I've liked change. I like change. I adapt. I think the adaptability is going to be important, and has been important. I also think I was raised in a way by my family, and continue to be supported by my family to this day. My grandfather taught me to read when I was very young. He would let me to read like newspapers and letters from his children loud in English and French, and he spoke several languages. And then my father has also said to me all the time, continues to say that as late as yesterday, telling me, never stop, keep on moving, don't look back, look ahead. And it's all about the future. Whatever you do today, you're building for the future. And continue to learn. Learn, do not stop learning.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for giving us a little insight into your job and your career path, because it's young people that we want who can watch this and be inspired by stories like yours.
Oh, thank you so much, Stuart. It's always a pleasure.